is The Point of News. My name is Yvonne Okwara.
And I'm John Allen Namu. Thank you for joining us tonight on The Point of News.
That's right. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Maresha Awiti on the bottom end of your screen.
And of course, our big picture tonight, opening the discussion, or rather continuing with this discussion, is a hashtag that a lot of people are familiar with.
Right.
My dress, my choice. A lot of people have been talking about it since those two very unfortunate incidents in Embakasi and in Mombasa, where two women on separate incidents were stripped by a bunch of men, a lot of people calling them hooligans. We're going to go deeper into this discussion. Beyond that, those two terrible incidents, of course, Yvonne, to whether this is a deeper issue.
Absolutely. How we sort out our issues, which is something you're going to be talking about with your panel tonight, but also addressing the issue of moral decadence. Is that the situation we find ourselves in? While we all agree what happened was irreprehensible, violence is never a way to sort out the issue.
True.
But it does bring up the issue of morality and where we stand in this country with that. What are sort of some of the images that young girls in society are exposed to, and what is our idea of the difference between being attractive and dressing decently? So it's that, very thin line.
The hemline debate, as
The
a lot of
hemline
people
debate,
would like to call it.
That,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, we're also going to be talking about whether this is a sign that Kenya is sliding back into violence or into a violent regime. Our panelists are Esther Pasaris, Ronnie Osumba, we've got Ndenya Masyoku, as well as Boniface Mwangi. And you can call in, especially people who have a contrary view to the My Dress, My Choice movement. If you have a contrary view to that, we'll be giving you the phone lines in just a moment, but you can call in and make your voice heard. Of course, we'll get into the highlights of the day right now, because we've got lots more for you on KTN Weekend Prime.
Weenda valisha girlfriend yako vile unataka ama bibi yako vile unataka.
Kimayo pleads with Embakasi lady to file report over stripping incident.
From the Nubian community, we have not been consulted on issues of slum upgrading.
Kibera upgrade hiccups. Nubians want Waiguru to assure them their land is secure.
Let's give them a time to deliver those things that they promised the wananchi wakati walikuwa naomba kura.
Sucking the juice out of cord after Machakos, Jubilee now raids Bungoma and Kisii.
Anasaidia sana huyo. Utajifungua hata kama ni 10 wamebaki huko nyuma.
And help me get a baby. How some Kilifi women deal with challenges of fertility.
Welcome to the program. Tonight, Deputy President William Ruto has called on police to arrest the Matatu touts in Nairobi who stripped a woman for allegedly dressing indecently.
Ruto spoke as Inspector General David Kimayo's office appealed to the lady who was attacked to record a statement to help in investigations. Catherine Omwanto has that story.
The Deputy President is the first top government official to come out and condemn the stripping and sexual harassment of two women in Mombasa and Nairobi, terming it as barbaric and against women's rights.
Hawa wenye kuvua wanawake nguo hadharani na wale wanatia mimba watoto shuleni ni wa dini moja. Hawa watu wote wanatakana wachukuliwe hatua za kisheria.
However, for the men to face charges, the National Police Service is appealing to the ladies, especially the one in Nairobi's Embakasi area, to make an official report to the police in order to aid with investigations. Like most sexual harassment victims in Kenya, the two women whose cases have caught the nation's attention have not yet filed a complaint with the police. Human rights defenders have explained that such women fear further humiliation should they come forward.
We do not want to live in a primitive world where people don't respect the rights of others, especially the rights of children and women.
I also urge the Matatu Association management to bring on board all the touts who have harassed our girls, because the previous case is not the first one. There have been rising cases of the touts harassing ladies in the name of addressing inappropriately. Men should have self-control. As women, men sag their trousers. They wear tight vests. There is no lady even in which rustic or in which town has ever stripped naked a man in the name of indecency.
Men and women against gender-based violence have vowed to take to the streets on Monday morning until the men who committed this crime are arrested and charged. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Tonight is on that subject, my dress, my choice. You can call in, especially if you have a contrary view to this opinion. Our phone lines are 0719-012-311 or 0719-012-590. Once again, that's 0719-012-311 or 0719-012-590. Let's move on now. The Nubian Rights Forum wants the Kibera slum upgrade project stopped until the government releases the Nubian community's land title.
The rights group has issued a 3-day ultimatum to the government to involve Nubian elders and opinion leaders in the slum upgrading project, failing which the community will not allow the project to continue. KTN's Patrick Amimo has the details.
A day after Devolution and Planning Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru launched an interministerial Kibera slum upgrading project, a rights group representing members of the Nubian community has cried foul. The Nubian Rights Forum says the community has not been consulted on government plans to transform Kibera.
The project will put the Nubian land at stake, and we kindly ask the intervention of the President. The project should only be restarted once the Nubian land title has been released.
From the Nubian community, we have not been consulted on issues of slum upgrading. But the issue ya barabara na usafi, tumeikubali, and our youths are on the front line on championing it.
During the launch, Kibra lawmaker Ken Okoth cautioned Waiguru that the Nubian land question might stall the project if not addressed.
A lot of the villages that are being benefited through this NYS project are in the proposed Nubian village. And in that proposed Nubian village, we don't have a final status. We haven't heard from the Cabinet Secretary for Lands on when the titles for that area will be issued to the trustees of that community. And so it is an issue of concern as we do those developments.
Nubians first arrived in Kenya as Sudanese soldiers serving the British Army during the late 19th century. After the Second World War, the colonial government settled the soldiers and their families on 4,000 acres piece of land in the outskirts of Nairobi that later grew into Kibra. The land under Nubian occupation has dwindled over the years as the community attempts to claim ownership. The Nubian Rights Forum says the Ministry of Lands has finalized plans to issue the community a trust title deed for 288 acres in Kibra. There is also a certificate of incorporation for trustees of the Nubian community land. They want the Ministry of Lands to speed up release of the title.
We sat with Madam Charity Ngilu, the Nubian Task Force, and we came up with this Kibra Nubian Community Land Trust title. It has been signed. It is now a legal document.
We decided that within the 600, 288 will be given to the Nubian community as under a communal land title deed. And then the rest of the 300, the slum upgrading will be done on that remaining 300 for the rest of the Kenyans.
The government plans to come up with model brick houses for the Kibera slum upgrade. The Nubian Rights Forum warns the project might not succeed without involving the Nubian community.
If our leaders, elders, will not be consulted on the ongoing programs in Kibra, then we'll make sure all those things stop.
Kibra Member of Parliament told the Standard that he'll be meeting members of the Nubian community on Monday to hear and address their concerns on Kibera upgrade. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
8 people who were killed earlier this week at Loruco in Isiolo were today laid to rest in Garemara, Isiolo County, after an emotional joint funeral service. Relatives and friends gathered for a prayer service during which leaders called for immediate action to be taken to ensure that the perpetrators of the killings were brought to book. Isiolo County Governor Godana Doyo described the incident as unfortunate and called on the national government to recruit more Kenya police reservists in Isiolo in order to curb cases of cattle rustling in the area. Leaders also expressed the need for peaceful coexistence between the local communities.
Ili Mwenyezi Mungu awape furaha.
I have seen ndege zikienda Kapedo because of 20 people. These are also Kenyans. Same measures, same thing should be taken into the books.
Still on matter security, retired officers of the discipline services have urged the government to involve them in curbing insecurity. Speaking in Nairobi this morning, the retired officers alleged some politicians are sponsoring retired members from the discipline services to train bandits across the country.
The over 180 ex-servicemen and women are here today to tell Kenyans that we are willing to sacrifice, to volunteer, and the government to volunteer information to the government. And we call upon our ex-servicemen who have been recruited. We are aware. We know them. They are out there training MRCs. They are out there in Turkana training the youth in the cattle rustling and engaging in cattle rustling. All this is politically motivated. There is a paymaster. We are telling them to come out, join us. We help this country.
But in Kenya, when somebody retires from discipline force, nobody tries to follow and get to know what the person is doing. And that is why some of them can be used by people with ill motives to recruit them and use them to do bad things.
All right, let's get into some politics now. Barely a week after touring Bungoma County, Deputy President William Ruto today made another call to the Western County in what is starting to appear as a case of strengthening the Jubilee base in the region.
And as KTN's Francis Ontomwa now reports from Sirisia, the ruling coalition has made the weekend tours at a time that the opposition cord is struggling to keep its house intact.
He who finds himself in Bungoma must dance to the tunes of Mulembe. Deputy President William Ruto was for the second time in just 1 week back in Bungoma County. This time setting base at Chwele Secondary School in Sirisia constituency. The reason Western Indros appear focused to turn the tables for Jubilee, and the DP's message was well crafted for the moment.
Nataka niwahakikishie sisi tuko tayari kufanya kazi na viongozi wenu wote.
Deputy President fired missiles to the opposition for what he called misguiding Kenyans.
And those in the opposition must also realize that they too must carry out their functions with patriotism, knowing very well that all of us in the opposition and in government have an equal responsibility, shared responsibility, to create a peaceful, prosperous, and united nation.
The meeting coming at a time when the opposition was grappling with troubles from within. The occasion played ground for goal shifting. Elected on an ODM ticket in the last polls, the man hosting Ruto Sirisia lawmaker John Waluke had no qualms for working with Jubilee government.
Sisi hata kama tuko upinzani, hata kama mimi niko ODM na hawa, lazima nimeuliza hawa, nimeongea na hawa wananchi. Hawa ndio kusema katika Sirisia hii. Na tumeagiria kwamba sisi tunasupport serikali ya Ruto na Uhuru. Hatutaokopa hata kama ni nini.
Mimi nilisema na taendelea kusema kwamba mimi nikiwa gavana kuendesha serikali ya county, lazima tushirikiane na serikali kuu, kwa sababu kuna ile matarajio ya wananchi kutoka kwa serikali kuu.
And the self-proclaimed master of predictions, former cabinet minister Noah Wekesa, was at it again. And from his political crystal ball, Jubilee will yet again have a field day come the next general elections.
Mimi nilikuwa nasema ya kwamba naweza kutabiri nani atakuwa president. Tayari saa hii mimi nimetabiri ya kwamba president atatoka kwa chama cha Jubilee 2017.
Ruto's visit to Bungoma comes in the wake of President Uhuru Kenyatta's visit to Machakos just the day before, and almost concurrently with Uhuru's foray into Kisii County. The Jubilee leaders appear to be quickly engaging opposition strongholds at a time the cord is shaking from internal rebellion. Francis Ontomwa, KTN, Weekend Prime.
We now switch to the other side of the political divide. Court leaders have now joined clerics in the country in their call to the government to keep off the affairs of the church. Raila Odinga, Moses Wetangula and Senator Boni Khalwale maintained that the constitution guaranteed the freedom of worship. They were speaking at the Buhungu Stadium in Kakamega during the funeral service for gospel singer Ben Bahati.
Some so-called pastors are actual criminals, then it is the government system that fails to vet and get genuine people who can be pastors who register them. They should arrest those criminals and not involve peace-loving people, good pastors like Ben Bahati. I hear the Deputy President was coming here. I was going to tell him this is a clear sign that the government is not in charge.
Ile sheria Attorney General anatengeneza itakuja mbele yetu. Tunawaambia makanisa, count on us. We will not allow the passage of any draconian law. Na lazima mjue kila mahali duniani serikali ikipoteza mwelekeo na ikianza kuyumba huwa inarukia kanisa.
Sio hii ambayo wanafanya sasa peke yake. Juzi umeleza sheria nyingine kusema kwamba mashirika ya kibinafsi ambao wanapata pesa kutoka ng'ambo wasipate pesa zaidi ya 15% peke yake. At only 15% they can get from outside. Na nyinyi mna marafiki kutoka ng'ambo. Mungu hapa na marafiki kutoka Amerika. Hamjui kama serikali tayari inapiga marufuku kupata pesa kutoka kwa wale watu.
Right, let's move away from all of that and go to some social matters now. Challenges of childbirth or trouble with infertility is often a matter of intense stress to women and their marriages. Now, such a woman would go to great lengths to be able to conceive. But for some women in Kilifi, the answer lies in black magic. Take a look.
A talisman on the floor and some decorated calabashes at hand. This is the homestead of Mkarie, the local medicine woman in Kambe, Kilifi County. Her tools of trade, however, are what define her. She is the local gynecologist. She boasts to have healed many who have been childless, all by using a magic calabash, Mwana Wandonga, in Mijikenda dialect, meaning the gourd that represents a baby. That is supposed to aid women in fertility. According to Mkaria, many a barren women have gotten children by simply being given the magic calabash to keep at home.
Nimempatia sababu atajifungua huyu, halafu atafunga tumbo tena, ajifungue mwingine. Huyo mmoja tu unaweza kujifungua pako kamaliza.
The calabash is also said to wave off bad spirits that can bring in complications during pregnancy. According to women's testimonies here, Mariam Miesi is one of the said beneficiaries of Mkaria's trade. After getting 3 children, she says she could not bear more children owing to a medical condition. She claims that one visit to the local medicine woman and a calabash made her get 5 children and counting.
Sasa mimi sipatile shida yoyosi. Ivyala haho. Alafu hii anenda chanza kuluma yondani.
Her neighbor Nzingo is expecting her 7th baby anytime. She claims her health was restored after being given the calabash.
Sanipokula nikashikwa na mwiba wa koo. Nikaenda hospitalini lakini sikufanikiwa. Tena nikaambiwa pate Mwanandonga nipige lama ndio nitapoa.
She also says that she has not been to a hospital in a while.
Ninashukuru Mungu kwa sababu kushika mimba yangu naendelea hata siku ya mwisho tumba kianza kuuma haya na mimi na zapa nyumbani tayari.
Despite attending clinic in health centers when expectant, many women have opted to rely on witch doctors for cases that they consider as a result of witchcraft.
sababu hospitali yeye amesoma. Wewe kitamaduni hukusoma. Unajua kwamba mti huu na huu na huu na huu utafanya kazi hii ya ugonjwa huu utamsaidia.
Hivyo zote zinafanya kazi.
Zote zinafanya kazi.
Traditions have made many women shun hospitals, and it may take education and time to convince them otherwise. Agnes Penda, KTN, Kilifi County.
Interesting events that are happening in Kilifi. Let's move on. Baringo Senator Gideon Moi has said insecurity at the border of Turkana and Baringo counties was purely competition over massive natural resources found in Kapedo. Speaking at Eldama Ravine, the senator said the region was rich with geothermal power deposits discovered at Silale Hills and demanded for proper marking of the boundary between the two counties to avoid future unnecessary conflicts.
Gideon also pledged through the Senate to ask the Commission on Revenue Allocation to increase funding to the counties from the current 220 billion shillings to 350 billion in the next financial year.
Next year, yale ambayo Cheserem anasema ati 270 billion itagawanyiwa counties, hiyo haitatosha. Tunataka tuhakikishe kwamba imefika at least 300 to 350 billion ambayo zitaenda kwa counties. Ikifanyika hivyo, sisi hapa kwa Baringo County tutaweza, sababu sasa tunapatanga billion 3, ikifika 350 tunaweza, pesa ambayo tutapata ni karibu billion 6 ambayo itafika county yetu hapa ya Baringo.
All right, and that is indeed the discussion John Alanamo is going to be having in just a moment. The panelists are all in My Dress, My Choice, the issue of morality in the country. And your feedback is already coming in. 22155 is the SMS number. The phone lines will also be open, and the numbers will be on the bottom of your screen, as well as on Twitter. Now, here's one interesting text, very simple, from Oseko in Nakuru. He says, my dress, my character. What do you think? Another one from Mwangi Donato says, I live in Turkana. Women in the interior villages are half covered, and yet they are not attacked. So all of this going back and forth, but you are going to be opening up the discussion to much more than just gender.
Exactly. I mean, it's a much wider discussion than just the two incidents and just gender. It speaks to violence in our society, perhaps even a slide towards moral decadence, like Yvonne had mentioned, and basic things about how to dress, where to dress, and what is appropriate in terms of dressing. Even, perhaps even a conversation about the national dress that we had years ago will come in now.
Indeed. This would be a good time to start that. So please do keep your comments and feedback coming in. The phone lines, as we said, will be open, so it'll be a great chance for you to interact. We'll be having all of that in just a short while, so do stay with us.
My Dress, My Choice on The Other Kenya.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
The Other Kenya. The hashtag, of course, is My Dress, My Choice. That hashtag has very many implications. Of course, it started with the incidents early on this week in Embakasi and Mombasa. We'll take you now to our video wall for some tweets from the other side, the other perspective on My Dress, My Choice. A lot of people saying that that view is not represented. We'll get those tweets on in just a second. But really, this is a discussion about gender. It's a discussion about violence. It's a discussion about a place and time and appropriateness. And let me just introduce my panel before we go to those tweets. To my immediate right is Esther Pasaris, well-known politician, social entrepreneur. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, there's Bonnie Mwangi, activist, very well-known as well. Used to work here in the Standard. That was a lifetime ago, right? Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Ndanya Masiuko, you are an image consultant. Thank you for joining us this evening. Of course, Kenya National Congress politician. He was Peter Kenneth's running mate, and are we looking at something a little higher in the future? I'll ask you that later. Rodney Osumba, thank you very much for joining us, right? Okay, let's go to our tweets right now. The first ones on our Super Bowl should be opening right now. Humphrey Wainaina, I do not condone stripping, but dress the way you want to be addressed. That's something we're going to be getting into. There's lots more, of course. That's our first tweet. We can roll on to our second tweet, at least from the discussions that other people are having. That was from Walimu Wanjie. This debate addressing Robert Alai, a person who's been very, very vocal about this. Robert Alai, on this debate, you are right. Let us all sober up. Amongst the crowd, why didn't men strip all the other women? I think we've got about 2 more tweets we can roll on just to give that other perspective as well. Mohammed A. Aden says, and this is of course also addressed to you, Bonnie, if you cover a simple phone with an anti-scratch, why not your body? Covered chocolates taste ... Leave. And finally, David Ngibwini says, time and location determines my dress, my choice. Outside that, choices have consequences. Ever seen owls fly during the day? Strange. Right? Of course, you can call us on 0719012311 or 0719012590 if you agree with the opinions expressed in those tweets. But let's get right into it now. Esther, those tweets. You addressed Robert Alai quite seriously during this week on the same subject. I'll just very quickly go to you and first ask, your dress tonight.
Yep.
Do you think that you are dressed appropriately?
You know what? What is appropriate? You know, I've got a teenage daughter who went to an international school, mingles with Europeans in Kenya, in schools in Kenya, all right? And wearing shorts, wearing mini skirts is normal, all right? And
but you'd have to agree that is a minority of the Kenyan population in terms of opinion and in terms of culture as well. That would be perceived as a tad bit...
when we started the Mutumba trade,
yes,
we brought in bales and bales of foreign clothes. And those bales and bales of foreign clothes hit our market. Leggings, jeggings, bras. We never used to wear bras, all right? And it was not perceived indecent. But today, if you don't wear a bra, it is indecent. But yet, these things came to us. We're in the international market. You know, I'm just thinking, today as I was driving here, I was thinking, Lupita Nyong'o, role model to many Kenyans on the concept of beauty. She's always in a mini.
Okay.
Right?
But listen to this. Western technology, I'll paraphrase it, of course, to what we're discussing about. But the Japanese say Western technology, local values. We can say the same for dress. Western technology or Western dress, but local values. We didn't import our values from Europe. They found them here in terms of our culture. Do you think, though, that you're pushing the boundaries?
Let me tell you something. There is no lack of values in a woman deciding she's comfortable wearing a mini, wearing trousers. When I was campaigning in Embakasi, it was a time when the Mungiki was saying that any woman who wears trousers will be stripped. So I was obviously scared. So I didn't wear trousers. And then a friend of mine bought me these boo-boos to wear. And I'll tell you one thing, I couldn't walk with the boo-boos. I couldn't campaign with them. I didn't know how to walk around with them. When we started doing the road rallies, in my dresses, the people downstairs could see everything. So I decided I'm going to wear trousers. And I was comfortable wearing trousers, jeans, etc. Nobody did anything. So at the end of the day, I feel that a woman's right to dress is her right. Do you know, John, if you have a daughter and you hit her or torture her because she wore a dress that you didn't approve, you're breaking the law.
All right, let's just hold on there. And Venya, just let me, you want to jump in?
I wanted to say something. I
Yes.
wanted to say that you brought up a good point about westernization, and I think we must not confuse westernization for civilization. What we saw happen is a lack of respect, where we violate somebody else, and not a case of whether it's westernization, we got the clothes, we got
the flip side to
different
that
things.
argument is that westernization also brought things that are not in congruence with our own
But we were civilized
culture.
already. We treated one another with respect. We took care of orphans and widows. We gave people who had no clothes clothes. In this case, we are violating people. We are beating them up because we don't think that the Western style they've picked is a good style. Yet the influences that we have, whether it's from the media or from the, the internet, wherever it is, people have options now. A matter of years ago, my mother would have a woman come from the UK and determine the length of the skirt based on what she brought. today the length of the skirt is determined by, like she said, the people bringing those clothes. And so for someone to say that it's a case of culture and stuff like that, we had no clothes before they came, or rather we had skins, hides, and it was okay. And so we must be, for us, the issue here has to do with being civilized, that we treat one another with respect. We don't violate a person.
All right. Ronnie and Bonnie, I want you to jump in now. Yeah. Is this a rights issue, but not in the way that has been described by Esther and Denya? Is this a rights issue from the respect of public morality? Inside your house, you can do what you want, but outside, if you dress the way, say, Esther is dressed tonight with a short skirt, then I have the right to upbraid you or even take your clothes off.
No, you have no right to touch anyone because of the way they're dressed. My mother used to wear miniskirts. If you go back to my mother's album, 60s, 70s, she used to wear a miniskirt. Did I disrespect my mother, or did you grow up disrespecting my mother because she was wearing a miniskirt? No. I don't think respect is about the way you're dressed. Because as they said, the dressing is Western, as in we used to wear loincloths. If you look at the Maasais, the Samburu, the Pokot, the Turkanas, even till today they wear miniskirts. But I think beyond that, it's about the rule of law in this country, where if the law really worked, those men wouldn't have touched that woman. Our society has actually degenerated to a level where people do whatever they want to do that. And I also blame the women leadership in this country. We had a women rep who was actually assaulted by a governor publicly, and we all saw it. It was a public issue. She could have actually set an example for the whole country, but she decided to settle that issue privately.
But when you're running away from a subject here,
no, I'm not running away because I'm talking
morality. You see,
it's not about morality.
No, but those men are representative of a very wide opinion that is held by very many
but the
people.
Opinion is,
they may have acted in a way that is not, that isn't good, that is violent. But it is representative of the view that public morality demands that if you're out, cover up.
Cover up what?
Well, yeah, exactly.
The question is, cover up what? My question is, if we never used to have clothes, and the clothes are Western, we can't say that we blame the one for the way she's dressed. I think we need to come back to the issue, that you have no right, the law protects me to dress the way I want to. And I need to dress for where I'm going to. If I'm going to the club, if I think I'm going to hang out with my friends, I can wear whatever I want, and I should feel safe wherever I'm going. Because right now what you're trying to tell me is that when a woman is about to dress, she should think about, am I going to have the police escort me to where I'm going to? Am I going to get violated? There's that issue about why are we intruding in private space? Because my body and my clothes is private property.
It is private property, but we live in a society. We live in a context in which you and I have to cooperate. You and I are not islands of one another, and thus the prurient interest in terms of morality comes into play. Ronnie, I want you to jump in here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How does my dressing affect you?
It affects you. It would affect me, at least. This is a point of view that a lot of people have represented. It would affect me if I feel that you are exposing something that I do not want the people around me, say my daughter or other women in society, to take an example.
So why did the women undress that woman?
The question about undressing, really, Bonnie, is not the issue insofar as public morality.
I think the moment you define this thought that what they did was right, or what they did was actually trying to protect something, we are actually trying to justify their thinking.
Right. I need to ask you a question. Giving them a moral high road.
Yes.
No one is morally superior. Recently, I saw a woman who was naked along the road, and people in their heads thought she was mad, and no one touched her. Yes. No one did anything to her. Exactly. Why would it be that the person has covered their private parts, but we still want to, and in this case for us, the issue here has to do with beating someone, giving them public humiliation. That's not education. If we want the general public and the whole country to be in a consensus, in Uganda, they banned miniskirts. Means if you wear a miniskirt, it's in the law. You're asking for trouble. In Kenya, there is no such law, and therefore we must be allowed.
Okay.
John, right. I think this is first and foremost. Let me just say, I think it is wrong. It is illegal. It's a crime to strip anybody in public, to met public punishment to anybody dressed in whichever way. So I think that must be clear. That that act was barbaric. That we must not condone it. That all men must stand against such crime, because this could be your daughter tomorrow. This could be your wife. This could be your mom. That said, I think the issue we are facing today is a values issue. And I think Kenya is at a crossroads. We are at a place where we want to embrace Western culture, but at the same time find it in conflict with our own cultures. These very same men who went about stripping this girl, who, number one, I don't think was skimpily dressed, as a lot of people have said, because they were actually not in a miniskirt. Even if they were actually in tights. All right? But these very same men are the very same people who actually celebrate and gawk at videos by, David or whoever you want to, refer to. But these are the very same men who celebrate these things in private.
All right.
And as soon as they walk out of that room, they condemn it.
Okay.
So I think what we are actually experiencing today, and it's not just about dress, it's about pretty much everything. It's about education, it's about healthcare, it's about any security of security.
But Ronnie, you raise a very interesting point in terms of the clash of cultures, and perhaps that's what we should have been discussing earlier. But before we carry on, we've got Daniel from Nairobi who's calling in. Daniel, can you hear me? First of all, thank you for joining us. Please give us your comment or question very quickly so we can move on with this discussion, Daniel.
I can hear you, sir.
Yes, Daniel, what's your question or comment?
My comment is this. I respect Madame Pasari's views, but when she comes in and says it's normal for us to, for our ladies to put on the way they're putting on. Actually, I don't know the part of normalcy she's talking about, but that's her view. Let people put on decently. I respect one of our leaders who said that let people put on the way they wish. I've been seeing his lovely wife putting on decently. I really don't understand why he's misleading our wives and our daughters.
All right. Okay,
let
Daniel.
People put on decently and let us respect one another. That's stripping, I condemn it. But let us be normal people in whatever we do. Let us not be proud of things we should be ashamed of.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Daniel calling in from Nairobi. Remember to keep your comments coming in. We will pick up some of your phone calls. 0719-012-311. That is the phone line, and of course they are at the bottom of your screen. Now, Daniel raises an interesting point. He agrees largely with what you're saying, but Esther, he spoke to you directly with respect to this being normal. And that, again, speaks to the issue of a clash of cultures, in that there are some people, a large number of people, I'd say, that don't consider miniskirts in public normal. And are we running away from this?
Let me tell you something. If you don't, you're entitled to your opinion, all right? If you don't think it's normal, then tell your wife, tell your mother, tell your daughter, tell your relatives, but you don't have a right to strip any woman because she's dressed up the way she's comfortable. All right, now, Ronnie mentioned something. He saw the clip, just like I saw the clip. You know what I feel happened here? The woman was walking, and the youth made some snide remarks, like something about her shape, or something about her weight, or something about her dress. And she probably turned around and told them, stop, or don't do this, or give them a mouthing. Then they took it upon themselves to strip her. Now, let me tell you something. If you're already uncomfortable with a mini, right, or a tight outfit, what comfort did you get when you stripped her nude? In the African tradition and values and customs, it is a curse to see a woman nude if she's not your wife. All right? Even your daughters, you cannot see your daughters nude. All right? So why strip a woman on the road for everyone to see her?
I hate to play devil's advocate on this issue. Just one moment, right?
Just one moment, Esther is asking here is, what justice was served? If you were pretty much offended by this woman being skimpily dressed, what justice then did you serve? Or what correction did you make by making her nude?
I mean, to be clear, there is no justification for violence of that sort, and then I'll get to you in a moment, but there's a flip side to what you're saying, right? If in the African culture it is a curse to see women naked, then the argument that a lot of people, including Robert Alai, were posting was that the people who are walking in town are very near naked, and therefore it is also an affront to culture in one way or another. Then let them just speak first.
I think first of all, we must recognize that we deal with different generations. Like I said, we have our grandparents, our parents, there's us, and then there's our children and the ones who come after us. And things are changing. times have changed. We must recognize that. If, for example, with every media house we see here, from 4 o'clock, the children are on holiday, they're seeing the same things we're talking about, culture, shown to them every single day as okay. And so if we show that as okay in our national media stations, we can't come back here and say, and I'll say, Mutula, rest his soul in peace, said to the girls, you can wear the short skirts.
All right.
If they could wear them in high school, why are we saying that they cannot wear them outside? Are we double standard? Are we trying to say that, okay, wear them in high school, but by the way, when you now transition, life changes? No, we've already set the precedent, and therefore we cannot.
All right, Bonnie, you wanted to say something very quickly?
I think that was a very highest level of intolerance from those people. There's nothing indecent about, if I choose to wear indecently, it's none of your business. I think there's a way we're trying to portray this. It's a bigger issue than just being that.
And I think the question is, what's indecency?
Yes,
Right.
and the bigger
who
issue
judges
is,
that?
and the bigger question is actually, there's actually a lot
Who
of
judges?
gender-based violence,
Who judges?
Right.
especially against women,
Right.
behind closed doors. And now it's the manifestation of what happens in people's private homes publicly.
All right, let me just pose a bit of a dilemma here for you, and we'll just go to that. It's one of the pictures that we've got coming up on our video wall of something that's becoming a big part of our public discussion. Like you said, Ndenya, in terms of that, there's a picture of 3 women that I'd like to show. A lot of people have seen that, right? Type Kenyan socialites on our Super Bowl right now. Type Kenyan socialites on Google today. You'll see Rispa, you'll see Corazon, you'll see Vera Sidika, all dressed very skimpily, right?
Oh, is that what you call skimpy?
Well, that is for a lot of people what is called skimpily. I doubt that people would walk in town with their
women.
bras.
They are adorned.
Are we going too far in terms of justifying this?
No, let me tell you something. If she's comfortable wearing that, it is her right.
But what is the undertone there? Look at what they're exposing.
What are
All
they
right?
exposing?
Look
She's
at what
not
they're
exposed.
exposing.
She's covered.
Look at what they're exposing or what they're
There's a thing about our culture that says sex is filthy, your body is filthy, hide your body parts. There's nothing like that.
But are we over-sexualizing our generations today to think
All
that...
right. 40 years ago,
we have a
my mother could wear a miniskirt in this country. 40 years later...
Was she able to wear like that?
Of course.
Short skirt, yes, my mother could wear, not the one at the center, but my mother could wear short skirt 40 years ago. Today, that can't happen. Why? My wife can't wear a miniskirt and go to downtown Nairobi because she's going to get stripped. Why? Are we losing ourselves and losing our values, as Ronnie said, as we become older as a country?
Okay.
No, tell me something. We're in the internet age. We have Google. We have YouTube. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. Our kids are seeing all this. All right? So explain to me something. If we want to create isolation, then disconnect all this. No MTV,
they may be
no
exposed to
foreign
this,
movies.
but there is a question about guidance in terms of what you're seeing.
Let's talk about
Then, yeah.
guided in the context of what happened.
Yes.
That there were men watching, and not few, many, watching, doing nothing as they watched the girl get undressed. And so for us, the bigger question then poses to... Is it that we wanted to watch a show? Is it that we wanted to see this? Is it that we've watched it now online, on TV, we want to see it live? Is that what it is? Because we have deeper issues, and those issues may be moral issues, which you were talking about.
We'll get to
before.
that in a moment.
Let me talk about context.
Yeah.
And because I personally strongly believe that a lot of the issues this country and this nation faces, a lot of the sufferings that people have is mostly value-based.
Yes.
Right.
Right? And so we have a value-based system that doesn't fit within, what all of us would consider
Ronnie,
value.
I'll just ask you to hold that thought. We've got James from Kitengela who's calling in. Let's just hear what he has to say. James, hello, can you hear us? Can you give us your question or comment, James?
Okay, mine is a comment, John.
Yes.
And I want to condemn what happened to the lady. However, having said that, I want you to look those guys and ladies in the eyes. Let them tell us whether they can allow their daughters to leave their houses dressed like the lady in the middle for the picture that you just showed. Secondly, why as a lady do you want to wear so uncomfortable when you keep on pulling over that skirt or mini dress? Why can't you just let it go to where you wanted it to go in the first place?
Okay.
So I think as Kenyans, we have very serious issues like water insecurity to deal with. We have no place for this nonsense. For those people who are undressing ladies, their place, even those ladies who are dressing badly, and even men are there who sag. They belong together, and I think this is the time they need to shape up.
Yeah.
We don't have time. We cannot, that is a luxury as Kenyans, we cannot afford. People dressing like we are in brothels or anywhere else, and also for those who are dressing these people, because
All right.
it is not a solution, let them shape up.
Okay, thank you very much, James. That's James from Kitangela. We've got Thomas calling as well. Thomas, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, what's your question or comment? Very briefly.
Okay, my comment is about the members of the panel. I can understand if they are talking from a secular point of view, it's okay. But if it's from a religious point of view, I don't think they are right.
Well, James, we are a secular state constitutionally, so is there still a bit of a dilemma when you think about the Constitution? We are a secular state.
Well, maybe if we are going to borrow from developed countries like the West, if their constitution allows them even marriage between men, does it make it to be right from a point of religion?
Mm-hmm. All right, James, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, so you don't just tell us that.
All right. James, I think your point has been made. Thank you very much, James.
I have a bit of a problem.
Now, Ronnie, actually, he raises a very interesting issue. Both callers do, and I think it's about the issue of values that you were talking about.
Right.
What is our collective agreement about what our values are?
And this is the point I was trying to make before. I mean, when we talk about morality and values, these things are primarily driven by either culture, religion, exposure,
education.
Right? And education, And what I think is, as a nation, we have not come to a universal agreement of what our values and what our moralities are. So people of different cultures within the nation, and we have multiplicity of cultures within the nation, have different views about some of these things.
Yeah.
And a Turkana will not overly be offended with seeing a woman dressed.
So we should have a national conversation.
So we should have a national conversation about what are our universal morality standards or value standards.
Right.
But at the same time, I want to take issue with Thomas because he raises a religious issue. Mm-hmm. And my point is this: does then religion allow for stripping of women who are skimpily dressed?
Good question.
And I think we add to that if we were to bring up the religious perspective, in the beginning God said, "Let us make man in our image and likeness, male and female, he created them." The woman is the female expression of who God is. And when we take a hit at the woman, we take a hit at God. And people must be able to recognize that it's not a random, it's just the woman.
All right.
And we've said that about abuse, that 85% of abuse is for women.
All right. Let's now just widen this debate a little bit. I understand your point has been made. Let's widen this debate. We've got just one clip that I'd like to run about certain incidents that perhaps will put into context what happened here. If we have that clip, Joanne, let's just run it so that we can carry on with this discussion.
Our country is dead. Our country is dead. The country is dead. The country is dead.
Now, that collection of clips might not have anything to do with this directly, but in terms of the use of violence publicly, that speaks to something about our society. Let's speak now about the culture of violence very quickly. As we conclude, you wouldn't believe it, but 25 minutes is almost over.
Wow.
Right? So, Esther, I'll just start with you. Just give us one of your final comments about
something.
violence in Kenya.
We have to respect the law. There is no negotiation there. I'm thinking about mob justice. When we used to put tires on people and think it was okay, it was not okay. All right? I'm thinking of forced female genital mutilation. Wrong. I'm thinking about stripping women. Wrong. If you have issues with how a woman dresses, then deal with it in a manner that can bring dialogue and understanding and laws.
And it speaks to a deeper issue of violence. Bonnie, you've seen those clips.
Yeah.
Why isn't there, let me pose a question to you as you make your final comments, why isn't there as loud a voice when someone is killed extrajudicially in Kenya as there would be for a debate such as this? It is violence, that it's on different parts of the scale, but why not?
I think Kenya has become it's a failed state in a way that we have allowed the police to kill because they're protecting me. Extrajudicial killings, the judiciary doesn't work, so police kill to protect me. We do mob justice to protect ourselves.
But why isn't that collective voice of condemnation?
The uproar is that they're doing that to protect me. That's why, that's the feeling. When they kill terrorist suspects, they're protecting me. I don't agree with them, but that's the feeling. I've been a victim of mob justice myself, political goons, and nothing happened. But I want to take it back to where we started. One lady called Shabesha had a chance to make a point about gender-based violence, and she did not do that. Nancy Baraza pinched someone's nose, and she lost her job. And you can see when men commit violence, they walk away with it. When women do it, women become victims. And as I end, I want to say this. Dressing is personal, religion is personal, and since this country doesn't have values, national values, values are personal. That's why men peer along the road, and women don't beat them up.
All right, Daniel, let's go to you for your final comments, but I want to lead you into that with a question. You're an image consultant. Is there a certain way that you could recommend in terms of time and place and fashion, in terms of dress, with respect to what we saw last week?
I think I want to add to one of the other conversations.
Yeah.
Want to say that there is hope. For us to be seated in this panel speaking to the nation means that someone somewhere is listening, and that if we begin to educate people, because I'm an image consultant, that's what I do, education. I come to your corporation. I've started a life skills curriculum in the high schools in partnership with the ministry to begin to educate from a younger age so that we can add values, morals, teach people what is right and what is wrong, and hopefully we will win some, and then if we lose some, we pray that justice is done, that there will be punishment for criminal activities, because that's what will then lead our society to know iwe funzo kwa wewe na wengine kama.
All right, Ronnie, from the political space, why isn't there a discussion about something as central as this as you wind up?
Because of two things. One, we do not have a set of national values. We have tried to constitute or legislate some set of values for this nation that do not resonate with a majority of the people, that do not resonate with culture, with religion, or anything else that we associate with. And I think it is time to have a very conscious and deliberate national conversation about what our values are. Let me put you on the spot.
What's the Kenya National Congress doing about having a conversation about values?
And this is the point. And we based our campaign purely on values. And we said we have to come up with a set of national values that unites us as one nation under one common set of values. And secondly, I want to say this, that we as men, you know, and I will be one of them because I have a daughter and I have a lovely son who I have a responsibility over to inculcate and even indoctrinate into a set of values. And unfortunately, men do not speak to their children in this country. Men do not have conversations around values and moralities because we fear it is the traditional thing to do. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about culture. We don't talk about anything with our kids. And this is a failure that is, I think, beginning to eat into our
Ronnie, we're going to have to wind up.
We must challenge the media as well.
Yes.
Not to propagate the stories as we would Ebola, but begin to do something positive towards educating the masses.
Something like this discussion, just as a plug. Bonnie, I'm sorry, we really have to wind up.
On Monday, we march for women's dignity. Let's reclaim it back.
All right. Okay. Esther Pasares Bonio. I was about to call you Bonio Dinga. Boniface Mwangi, Ndanya Mosioku, as well as Ronnie Osumba. Thank you very much for coming. Of course, this is a discussion that can end right away. The hashtag is still going on there. And if you noticed, I have been playing devil's advocate quite a bit because it's very difficult to get people of the opposite opinion to speak about this issue and confront this. That's why we've been doing this. But of course, there is a point to every discussion that we have here on KTN. That's why we call it a point of news. And Yvonne Okwara has been following this discussion. So Yvonne, what is that point?
Yes, that's right, John. And as you said, this conversation cannot be concluded in an hour, in two, possibly even a whole day of just continuous discussion. But here are some points to consider. Morality versus criminality. Attempting to address a moral issue using criminal means or through violence. These are some of the questions that are coming up in this case. Whether or not the ladies were dressed in what one might consider morally decent or not. What is the best way to solve that issue? Are we using violence to solve an issue? And in that case, are we making the situation better or worse? As John pointed out in many of the clips, it seems we are slowly becoming a violent society, choosing to address every issue. You don't like what a politician has said, you use violence. You don't like how someone is dressed, you use violence. How are we addressing these issues of morality? And those are questions that we need to ask ourselves today. Do we have a constitution in this country that functions? Do we have a penal code that functions? Then those perhaps might be alternative ways of attempting to solve an issue of morality or indecency, as it may be. Second point to consider, Western culture versus African culture. It seems in the country we are at a crossroads, trying to define who we are as Kenyans, who we are as Africans, who we are, what our value system is, what is too short, too tight, too revealing. If we cannot even come together to decide what a national dress is, who makes who the moral police? Who is the one that decides what is right, what is wrong? Have we been able as Kenyans to define our value system? It seems in this country, we're the ones that are open and the sponges that are just sucking up and soaking up everything that comes from outside without perhaps defining who we are and therefore then starting to gauge what is happening based on those standards that have been set. Perhaps that is a conversation that we need to have going forward. That is the point tonight.
Welcome back to KTN Weekend Prime, the point of news, and we move on now to sport. And one big marathon is going to take place tomorrow. That's the 8th edition of the CAS Marathon. We're all set up in Eldoret and in Uasin Gishu, the county of champions. Joshua Kemboi standing by there for us. Joshua, what's it like in Eldoret and what are the preparations like?
Well, thank you very much, John Alan Namu, there at the studios along Mombasa Road. We are live here at the Power Place in Eldoret on the eve of the 8th edition of the CAS International Marathon. We have been confirmed that 2,800 athletes will be taking part in the main races. That is the 42 kilometers for men and 42 kilometers for women. Of course, we know this race has, well, started way back in the year 2007, and it continues to inspire the talent that is around here. This is one race again which takes place between 3 counties. It starts in the Nadi County, ends in Uasin Gishu County, but of course we have athletes also coming from the City of Champions or the other side of the county, that is Elgeyo Marakwet County. And this race will not be complete without the mentor or the person who started this race, exactly Joshua Chepkwony, who dared to dream 7 years ago. This is the 8th year, and we will be just getting to know from him. Joshua Chepkwony, thank you for that dream. Some people said you really dared to dream around that time. I don't know, you've inspired a lot of talent. We've seen a lot of athletes winning and going on to win other races. We do not know, and Kenyans probably are wondering, where is this race heading to?
I think what excites us, Kimbo, is the question that every year, at least we have people who win they participate in CAS Marathon and goes on to globally to win the marathons. it gives us inspirations, and we feel that we've discovered talent that conquers the world. I don't know, there may be more there. That is what keeps us going on, to make sure that next time we discover new talents, for the better, for the rest of the world to see the good talent from Rift Valley.
You did say earlier on that you are satisfied with the talent that has been churned out from this CAS Marathon. Is it the end of it? We will still see the same, or you say, yes, you have achieved what you wanted, let some other people carry on with it?
No, I think what happened is what challenged us today. I'm a bit excited because we've discovered a few guys who have conquered the world. So ideally, this should encourage us to be able to discover more. There may be more better guys, there are better runners there, but they have not been given an opportunity to expose their talents. So we are excited. Just that's the beginning. And we're going for a long haul.
Exactly.
So watch this space.
Exactly, watch this space, and that exactly is the promise he has given. He has given the same promise. It only shows that he's not growing tired. Those athletes who are wishing to, break the international mark, this is where to start the race. And we would want to promise KTN will be live from tomorrow 6 a.m. all the way to the end of the 2 marathons. That is the 42 kilometers. We'll also have the 10 kilometers and the family fundraise. Be with KTN from tomorrow 6 a.m. up to the time we will finish the races. Back to you to studio.
From the field, let's move to the track now. In primary school dropout, Julius Tangi won the second Athletics Kenya cross-country series in A10 early today. Emmanuel Bor was a star runner in the senior men's 12-kilometer race, while Sheila Chepngetich made it 2 out of 2 after winning the women's 8-kilometer race. The event paves way for the Kapsokwony and Nyahururu cross-country to be held on December the 5th and the 6th.
With the 10 being the home of champions, the second edition of the AK Cross Country Series attracted a huge number of participants as well as spectators. Over 70 participants started in the 12 kilometers men's race as athletes get ready for the World Cross Country Championships set for next year in China. After sticking together for the initial stages of the race, Josephat Kiprop took the lead while 2 athletes assumed the chase. The 10-based Emmanuel Bor eventually emerged the star of the race in 35 minutes 8.4 seconds.
Kwa kuanza kweli nilikuwa nyuma, nilitokea nyuma. Sasa nilitumia nguvu ndio nifike kule mbele.
Nairobi cross-country winner Sheila Chepngetich led the 8 kilometers women race from Ghana and held on to win the race amid a strong challenge from Irene Chebet, who settled for second. Chepngetich clocked a time of 25 minutes 53.4 seconds. A Class 7 dropout, Julius Tanki, who was second in Nairobi, won the 8 kilometers junior men's race. The Japan-based 17-year-old clocked 22 minutes 58.6 seconds.
Julius Tanki, a resident of the Narok County who gave up on his education to chase his athletic dream in Japan, hopes that this year is going to return good results and start paying dividends for the sacrifice he has made.
Najua niliona jirani yangu naitwa William Sitoni Mwale. Ni jirani yangu. Yeye amekimbia mpaka anaenda ngambo. Nikaambia wacha ni trainer kama yeye.
Athletes will next converge at Kapsokwony for the 3rd edition of the cross-country meeting on 5th of September.
Now, all preparations, as you saw, are in top gear for the 8th edition of the CAS Marathon. The KTN crew of over 35 members have set up base in Eldoret in readiness for the 8th edition of the marathon, the international marathon, I should say. The marathon will be held on Sunday morning, where the winner of the 42-kilometer race will take home 1.5 million shillings. Last year's CAS Marathon 12-kilometer winner Wilson Kiprop will attempt the full marathon during the 8th edition of the competition tomorrow. About 2,700 athletes will line up for the different races tomorrow, and Victor Ogale, who is in Eldoret, now reports.
It is all systems go for the 8th edition of the CAS International Marathon. Athletes, sponsors and organizers are busy putting the final touches in their respective areas ahead of the D-Day on Sunday. KTN crew left nothing to chance as they prepared for the 6 hours live broadcast. Eldoret Sports Club will host the finishing point and not the Uasin Gishu headquarters, as has been the last 7 years. From the technicians to the engineers, the crew, which also included bikers, was an instant attraction to residents of Kapsabet, especially Boda riders, who could not resist having a feel of the equivalent.
Tumezoea hii pikipiki zetu injini ndogo, lakini nimeona hii ni kama ni manuari sana na ni kama inafuruga mwendo sana, mpaka nimevutiwa nikuja karibu niangalie polepole. Nimeona imezidia hii yenye ninafanyia matatu.
Hata maumbile yake ni kubwa. Alafu ukienda kutazama pia ile mwendo ambao tumeona hata kikimbia kidogo hapa, gari ni nyuma, inashinda gari.
Registered athletes turned up in large numbers to collect the race numbers.
Prepare kukimbia 10K so that I can test the speed.
Natarajia mema kwa sababu vile tulikuwa tuna train huko Nandils huko TL Company huko, tumekuwa na maandalizi mema.
According to the organizers, they feel the event has grown compared to previous editions.
We have a bigger space this time, and like where we used to finish at the county government headquarters, now we are doing it at a sports club where we have at least more than 60 acres of space. One, to create an experience for everybody. We've cut that even for sitting space and some entertainment for children to be able to. So we want to request the business community to come with family. We also have a family fundraise 5 kilometer, starts from town all the way to the sports club.
I'm standing at the starting point of the 8th edition of the CAS International Marathon, where all the athletes will converge before heading straight to the Eldoret Sports Club grounds, where the king and queen of the 42-kilometer race will be crowned. Victor Ogale, KTN, Kapsabet, Nandi County.
This is CAS Marathon 2014.
Right, and the conversation on dressing continues in all our social spheres. Why do we laugh when men are bathed in public and frown when women are stripped in public? A case of double standards. Your feedback continues to come in. Thank you so much for watching the Bulletin tonight, for your time, your participation. My name is Yvonne Okwara.
And I'm John Alanamu. Remember, Checkpoint is on tomorrow. Yvonne is going to be hosting a great panel, so stay tuned for that discussion. This is The Point of News. Good night.